Once upon a time, there was a Zen student who wished to impress his teacher with his understanding. He recited a famous Buddhist poem. The voices of torrents are from one great tongue. The lines of the hills are the pure body of Buddha. With a certain pride, he turned to his teacher and asked, "Isn't that right?" The teacher, after a brief moment of silence, replied, "It is. But it's a pity to say so." And there, in that single response, the teacher unraveled the very essence of Zen. For Zen cannot be captured by words, no matter how beautiful or profound. It lives in silence, in the spaces between our thoughts, in the moments before and after speech. To speak of Zen, to attempt to pin it down, is already to miss the point. In truth, if I were to address you in the manner of the ancient Zen masters, I would simply strike this microphone with my hand, bow deeply, and walk away. That act alone would say more about Zen than any words I could conjure. Yet here I am, speaking. Why? Because we, as humans, are creatures of language. We are addicted to concepts, to explanations, to stories. And so if I am to speak of Zen, I must do so knowing full well that words are but shadows on the wall of the cave, illusions pointing at best to something far greater than themselves. Zen, you see, is not a doctrine. It is not a belief system to be memorized or a creed to be recited. Nor is it a philosophy in the Western sense, a neat arrangement of ideas to categorize and explain reality. No, Zen is a way of being. It is a state of awareness that transcends thought, a direct experience of life as it is, unfiltered and immediate. To attempt to explain Zen is like trying to catch water in a net. The moment you think you have it, it slips through. And yet, here we are, fumbling with words. Perhaps we can begin by considering water itself. Imagine you've been living your whole life on dry land. You are accustomed to solidity, to ground beneath your feet. But one day, you are thrown into the ocean. Panic sets in. You flail, you kick, you try desperately to stand on the water as though it were solid ground. But water offers no support to those who struggle against it. And so, in your resistance, you sink. But the secret to swimming is not to fight the water. It is to surrender to it. You relax, you let the water cradle you, and you learn to move with it, not against it. In that moment of surrender, something remarkable happens. You and the water become one. The boundary between you and the ocean dissolves, and you are no longer a separate being trying to conquer the water. You are the water. This is the essence of Zen, to let go of the illusion of separation and flow with the great current of life. Now, this is easier said than done, especially in the modern world. We live in an age of extraordinary philosophical and existential confusion. The old certainties, God, meaning purpose, have crumbled. The metaphysical frameworks that once gave structure to our lives have been declared obsolete. We find ourselves adrift in a sea of ambiguity, with nothing solid to cling to. And yet, here lies the paradox. There was never anything to cling to in the first place. Life, like water, is fluid and ever-changing. It cannot be grasped, only experienced. The harder you try to hold on, the more it slips through your fingers. Zen, if we must attempt to define it, is simply the art of letting go. It is the realization that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. It is the recognition that all things are expressions of one great energy, a boundless, nameless force that flows through everything. Over the centuries, people have tried to name this energy. Some call it God. Others call it Brahman, Tao, or the Absolute. But these names are merely signposts, and often they become traps. The word God, for instance, is so laden with cultural baggage that it has become almost unusable. For many, it conjures images of a stern patriarchal figure, watching from the clouds, issuing commands and judgments. The Buddhists, perhaps wisely, chose words that mean nothing at all. Words like tathata, often translated as suchness or thusness. But even these translations miss the point. Tathata is not a concept to be understood, but a reality to be experienced. It is the da-da-da of a baby first encountering the world, a pure, unmediated exclamation of wonder. This is the heart of Zen, the recognition that all things are one great suchness. The universe is not a collection of separate objects, but a single, unified whole, endlessly flowing and transforming. It is a dance of opposites, light and dark, yin and yang, being and non-being. Waves rise and fall, but the ocean remains. And yet we are haunted by the illusion of separation. We see ourselves as isolated beings, cut off from the world around us. We cling to identities, to roles, to the illusion of permanence. And in doing so, we suffer. But the great secret, the great liberation, is this. You are not separate from the universe. You are not a solitary wave, struggling against the tide. You are the ocean itself. When you awaken to this truth, something remarkable happens. The fear of death dissolves, for you see that death is not the end, but a transformation. The wave does not disappear. It simply returns to the ocean. Life and death, being and non-being, are not opposites, but complements, two sides of the same coin. To live in this awareness is to live without fear. It is to drift like a cloud, to flow like water, to embrace the impermanence of all things. It is to see that life is not a problem to be solved, but a game to be played, a dance to be danced. The Taoist sage Zhuangzi once said, "The perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing, it receives but does not keep." To live in this way is to be free, to be unburdened by the need to control, to judge, to cling. And so, if we are to speak of Zen, let us not seek to define it or to confine it within the limits of language. Let us instead experience it, here and now, in the silence between words, in the space between thoughts. Let us laugh, let us cry, let us live fully and freely, knowing that we are, and always have been, the water itself. Because in the end, there is nothing to fear, nothing to grasp, nothing to resist. There is only the great flow of life, the endless dance of energy, and the realization that you are that, always and forever, that.